Pastor Jerry here with another book review. This one, The Case for Creator by Lee Strobel. This is a very excellent book. He's actually created an update version of this book. This is a book that I read several years back again, but what it does is it creates great evidence for there being a creator God. His goal is not necessarily in this book to prove the God of Christianity, but to prove that there is a creator God that made the universe and everything in it. And so Lee Strobel, if you don't know him, Lee Strobel was a journalist for the Chicago Tribune, and he used to go listen to court cases and stuff, and he would interview people for cases. And at some point in his life, his wife became a Christian, and so when she became a Christian, it really frustrated him. He wanted to disprove Christianity, so he goes and does evidence. In the process of trying to disprove Christianity, he actually discovered that Christianity is true, and he wrote his first book, The Case for Christ. Later on, eventually, he would write this book, A Case for Creator. He uses the same technique as a good journalist. He goes and interviews the experts. Now, he first does some research, and he knows both the pros and con arguments, and he presents that to his expert interviewers, and he goes to the experts to lay out the case for creator, and he challenges them with the opposing side. This is the argument the opposite side would make, and he challenges them. And so this book does a great job at that. This is a book that college students should read or high schoolers should read, so they are equipped to explain for the hope that they have that there is a creator God. So I'll go over the chapters, and the first one is chapter 1, white coated scientism versus black robed preachers. And this first chapter is just saying the ground of saying, are these two things active fighting against each other? Can these two never come together? And actually they do. In fact, as you explained this, a lot of the Christian scientists actually lay down the foundation for science. And many of the greatest scientists, like Newton, were Christians. And so they are not at oppositions. And a lot of the arguments that Christianity is always attacking science is not true. And he'll go over the history of that. The next one is chapter 2, the image of evolution. In this case, he looks at the very common images. For example, you see the different evolutionary stage of humanity, and he looks at it and says, well, is this an accurate picture? He also looks at Haeckel's embryos and deals with that, and many other images that we're familiar that we are taught in schools to convince us of evolution. And he looks at this and shows, no, those are not good reasons. Doubts about Darwin is the third chapter, and he to this one he talks in interview with Jonathan Wells, but what he's saying is there good evidence for evolution? Is evolution a good explanation for life? And so they look at that. The next one is chapter 4, where science meets faith, and again, it's creating that reconciliation. Chapter 5 is the evidence for the cosmological beginning with a bang. Interview with William Lane Craig. Now, I would just read just because of William Lane Craig. He's such an accomplished apologist. There may be some theological disagreements we may have, but he's a very accomplished apologist. Many of the atheists are afraid to debate him, and because his arguments are just that solid. And in this chapter, he gives the argument for why the Christians' evidence for how do we know that there was a creator or designer or a cause to the universe, and not just be it came out of nowhere. And so he deals with this, and so it goes over the cosmological, how is the beginning of creation point to a creator. Then chapter 6, evidence for the physical and cosmos on Razor's Edge. Interview Robin Collins, and so that just goes a little bit more specific about how our universe was created and what makes it look like it's pointing towards there's a creator. And it goes over the science of physics and the laws of nature and gravity and all these different things. Then we go into the chapter 7 and the evidence for astronomy, the privileged planet, and he interviews Guillermo Gonzalez and J. Wessel Richards. And this is really looking at um, at our planet, Earth, and what makes it so unique for life. And it really is unique. In fact, there's a whole book and video just on this topic alone. All of these are actually main topics all alone, but this one he really goes into what makes your planet unique, and why does the way our planet is created, why does that point to a creator God? Chapter 8, the evidence for the biochemistry, the complexity of molecules by Michael J. Behe. This is the evidence that we look at the cellular DNA and we see in our body that to the battle to the groundest, smallest level that we see there's design and complexity that evolution cannot account for. Chapter 9, the evidence of biological information, the challenge of DNA and the origin of life. And this is basically they look at why evolution can explain DNA and why DNA cannot just pop out of nowhere. And it's dealing with there's so much information in DNA and so complex, and information doesn't come from somewhere, it has to come from something. And chapter 10, the evidence of the consciousness and the enigma of the mind. That's by G.P. Moreland. Excellent apologist also. And this one's really considered the conscious mind. And this is important. It's one of the best evidence because the conscious mind, as you read in the chapter, talks about how the conscious mind cannot be explained by our brain, because if that was it, we would all just be reacting to whatever chemical reaction. You wouldn't be able to have that free choice. You'd only be, and therefore, if you don't have free choice, you can't be held accountable for anything you do. And so the conscious mind points to something external, something greater, and in fact, there's something more to you than just your physical matter, but that you have a soul that's immaterial. And chapter 11, the commutative case for the creator. And so this is where he brings it all together and gives his evidence and said, this is why this points to a creator God. So he lays out a foundation, gives you a great understanding of the case for creator. He then goes in an appendice. He does a great short snippet of his other book, Case for Christ. Another great book you should read, and I'll have a review on that soon enough. I just always like doing this book first because a lot of people, nowadays we need to go to foundation. Case for Care, just to understand that there is a God and the evidence for a God. This book does a great job. I highly recommend it. Just to kind of give you an idea, I'll read the back here. It says, during his academic year, Lee Strobel became convinced that God was outmoded in belief that colored his ensuing career as a award-winning journalist at the Chicago Tribune. Science had made the idea of creator irrelevant, or so Strobel thought. But today, science is pointing in a different direction. In the recent years, a diverse and impressive body of research has increasingly supported the conclusion that the universe was intelligibly designed, and at the same time, Darwin has faltered in the face of concrete facts and hard reason. Has science discovered God? At the very least, it's giving faith an immense boost as a new finding emerges about the incredible complexity of our universe. Join Strobel as he re-examines the theories that once led him away from God. Though it's a compelling account, you encounter mind-stretching discovery from cosmology, cellular biology, DNA research, astronomy, physics, and human consciousness that presents astonishing evidence in the case for Creator. I highly recommend this. By the way, I would rather read this book, and I won't get in trouble, than read a book by Ken Ham, because Lee Strobel looks at credible science, well-respected scientists in their field, and he really gives a good evidence. And this is a good classical apologetics style, and it's far better than anything you'll read from Ken Ham. I'm sorry to do a hit on him, but I have to. This is better. This is stuff that you want your kids to be reading. This is stuff you want to read. It'll equip you to better talk to your friends, family, and as you witness to people, it'll give you the tools you know to present the evidence for Creator. So, have a great day and God bless.